You know that moment when you realize your husband's working late wasn't about closing deals, but about opening someone else's bedroom door? Yeah, well, apparently I was the only one not invited to that particular house showing. Hi, I'm Lisbeth Carmichael, and if you think finding your husband's affair partner on LinkedIn was awkward, wait until you hear about the dinner party I threw to introduce her to her own husband. Spoiler alert, it wasn't a potluck. It all started on a Tuesday in March. Because of course life-changing disasters always happen on the most mundane days. I'm 38, been married to Denver for 12 years, and up until 3 weeks ago, I thought our biggest problem was him leaving his dirty socks next to the hamper instead of in it. Turns out, dirty laundry was just the tip of the iceberg. I should have known something was off when Denver started dressing like he was auditioning for a cologne commercial. This is a man who considered khakis fancy pants for 12 years. And suddenly he's wearing designer shirts that cost more than our monthly grocery budget. When I asked about it, he said he wanted to elevate his professional image. Professional image, my foot. The only thing he was elevating was someone else's heart rate. The red flags started piling up faster than Amazon packages during the holidays. Late-night client meetings at restaurants I'd never heard of. Weekend property viewings that somehow never resulted in listings. And my personal favorite, the sudden interest in self-improvement podcasts about being your authentic self. Nothing says midlife crisis like a 41-year-old real estate agent discovering authenticity through adultery. But here's where it gets interesting. I'm not just any wife. I'm a marketing director at one of Atlanta's top firms, which means I have access to tools that would make the FBI jealous and a suspicious mind that's been professionally trained to spot inconsistencies. When Denver started acting shady, I didn't cry into my wine glass. I opened up my laptop and got to work. First stop, his phone bill. Now, before you judge me, I pay the bills in our house. It's not snooping when it's literally your account. And holy moly, what a goldmine that was. Hundreds of texts to a number I didn't recognize, always during business hours. Calls lasting 45 minutes to an hour, right around the time he was supposed to be showing properties. The detective work was almost too easy. A quick reverse phone lookup gave me a name, Marlo Finch, because of course her name is Marlo. It sounds like something you'd name a character in a romance novel, where the heroine has unnaturally perfect hair and an inexplicable ability to renovate Victorian houses. A LinkedIn search revealed that Marlo Finch, 34, is an interior designer with her own boutique firm. Her profile picture screamed, "I drink green smoothies and do yoga at sunrise," with perfectly blown-out blonde hair and that kind of smile that says, "I definitely steal other people's husbands as a hobby." Her bio mentioned her passion for creating beautiful spaces for beautiful people. Apparently, my husband's bed counted as a beautiful space. But wait, it gets better. Because Marlo isn't just some random home wrecker. She's married. To Jasper Finch, a graphic designer who, according to his Instagram, has the creative soul of an artist and the unfortunate face of someone who definitely didn't see this coming. Poor Jasper's social media was full of pictures of their perfect life, date nights, weekend getaways, and anniversary posts that would make Hallmark cards jealous. Now, here's where most wives would confront their cheating husbands with tears, accusations, and probably some thrown objects. But I'm not most wives. I've spent my entire career crafting campaigns that get people's attention. And honey, I was about to launch the marketing campaign of my lifetime. The plan started forming faster than you could say home wrecker. See, Denver and his little interior decorator had a routine. Every Thursday at 12:30, they'd meet at the Capitol Grill downtown. I know this because I followed them. Twice. Don't judge me. Desperate times call for desperate measures. And my marriage was basically the Titanic at this point. The Capitol Grill. Because nothing says I'm destroying my marriage like overpriced steaks in a restaurant where the breadbasket costs more than most people's lunch. They had their little corner booth, probably thinking they were so clever, so discreet. Denver would arrive first, order a whiskey neat like he was some kind of sophisticated gentleman instead of a suburban dad who gets excited about riding mowers. Then Marlo would sashay in wearing outfits that cost more than my car payment, and they'd sit there playing footsie under the table like teenagers. Watching them together was like witnessing a really bad dinner theater production. Denver was trying so hard to be charming, laughing at everything she said like she was Dave Chappelle instead of a woman whose biggest life achievement was probably picking out throw pillows. And Marlo? She was eating it up like it was the last piece of chocolate cake at a Weight Watchers meeting. That's when the most beautiful, diabolical idea hit me. If they wanted to play house, I was going to give them the full family experience. But first, I needed to meet the other victim in this little soap opera. Jasper Finch worked at a creative agency about 10 minutes from my office. His LinkedIn showed he specialized in brand identity and digital design. Basically, he made logos for companies that wanted to look more important than they actually were. Perfect. I could work with that. I spent the next week crafting the perfect email. Professional, intriguing, and completely innocent. I introduced myself as a marketing director looking for a graphic designer for a new campaign. Nothing suspicious about that. It happens every day in Atlanta's business scene. I suggested we meet for lunch to discuss the project. And where did I suggest we meet? You guessed it. The Capitol Grill. On a Thursday, at 12:30. The beauty of this plan wasn't just the confrontation. It was the complete and utter public humiliation that would follow. Denver thought he was so smart, so careful. Marlo probably felt like she was starring in her own romantic movie, but they were about to get a reality check that would make them wish they'd never learned each other's names. Because here's the thing about affairs. They're built on secrets, lies, and the thrill of getting away with something. Take away the secrecy, and suddenly it's not so exciting anymore. It's just two selfish people destroying 4 lives for a few moments of feeling special. I had 1 week to prepare for the performance of my lifetime. 1 week to plan the most epic introduction in the history of suburban Atlanta drama. And trust me, I was going to make it count. The week leading up to Operation Family Reunion, yes, I named it, because if you're going to orchestrate the destruction of your marriage, you might as well give it a proper title, was like preparing for the Olympics of passive-aggressive warfare. And let me tell you, I was going for the gold. Jasper responded to my email within 2 hours, which told me 2 things. 1, he was eager for new business, and 2, he had absolutely no idea his wife was playing interior decorator with my husband's feelings. His response was professional, enthusiastic, and heartbreakingly innocent. I'd love to discuss your project over lunch. The Capitol Grill sounds perfect. I've heard great things about their business lunch atmosphere. Oh, Jasper. Sweet, clueless Jasper. The business lunch atmosphere was about to get very, very interesting. Meanwhile, at home, Denver was putting on an Academy Award-worthy performance as the devoted husband. He'd started this new thing where he'd kiss my forehead before leaving for work, like he was trying to absolve himself of his sins through small gestures of fake affection. "Have a great day, babe," he'd say, probably thinking about how he was going to have an even better afternoon with Miss Interior Design Barbie. The man even brought me flowers. Flowers. After 12 years of marriage, he suddenly discovers romance right around the same time he discovers adultery. The irony was so thick you could cut it with the steak knives at his favorite cheating spot. "What's the occasion?" I asked when he walked in with a bouquet of roses that screamed guilt purchase. "Can't a man buy his beautiful wife flowers just because?" he replied, flashing that smile that used to make my heart skip beats, but now just made my eye twitch. "Of course, honey. They're lovely." I put them in a vase, thinking about how I was going to enjoy watching him explain this sudden burst of romantic inspiration to Marlo when she inevitably asked why he seemed distracted during their little love lunches. The really twisted part? Part of me was almost impressed by his commitment to the charade. Denver was putting more effort into hiding his affair than he'd put into our actual relationship in the past 2 years. He was planning romantic gestures, paying attention to details, and actually listening when I talked. All skills that apparently only emerged when he had something to hide. But the universe has a sense of humor, because the very day before our scheduled family introduction, Denver came home with a story that almost made me choke on my wine. "You'll never believe what happened today," he said, loosening his tie like he'd just survived a particularly challenging day of betraying his marriage vows. I was showing that house on Peachtree, and the seller's interior designer was there doing the staging. Turns out, she knows exactly how to make a space feel more intimate. I nearly spit out my Chardonnay. The audacity of this man to come home and essentially tell me about his affair while disguising it as a work story was next-level narcissism. But I played along because I'm nothing if not a professional. Oh, really? What did she suggest? Just little touches. Softer lighting, more personal elements. She said the right touches can make any space feel like home. He was looking at me with this dreamy expression, probably remembering whatever personal touches Marlo had been giving him. Sounds like she really knows what she's doing, I replied, thinking about how she was about to find out exactly what I knew about doing. Maybe we should hire her for our place sometime. Denver nearly dropped his drink. Oh no, I don't think... she's probably really expensive. And we don't really need... Our house is fine the way it is. Sure, Denver. Our house is fine. But apparently Marlo's interior design skills were exactly what you needed for your midlife crisis. The mental gymnastics this man was doing could qualify him for Cirque du Soleil. That night, as Denver slept peacefully next to me, probably dreaming about crown molding and inappropriate workplace relationships, I finalized my preparations. I'd researched everything about Jasper Finch that the internet had to offer. His company's portfolio, his design aesthetic, even his college fraternity pictures that someone definitely should have untagged by now. The man was actually talented. His design work was clean, sophisticated, and showed real creativity. He'd worked with some impressive clients and had won a couple of local awards. In other words, he was exactly the kind of person who deserved better than a wife who scheduled her marriage destruction around lunch specials. I also spent some time studying Marlo's social media, because know your enemy, right? Her Instagram was a carefully curated shrine to her perfect life. Morning yoga sessions, acai bowls that cost more than most people's entire breakfast, and approximately 47 different angles of her and Jasper's kitchen renovation. Every post had these incredibly vapid captions about living your best life and choosing joy, which was apparently code for choosing other people's husbands. My personal favorite was a post from 2 weeks ago, right around the time her little affair was heating up, where she'd written this long caption about the importance of authentic connections and being true to yourself. The comments were full of her friends praising her wisdom and authenticity. If they only knew that her idea of authenticity was authenticating her marriage vows with someone else's husband. But here's what really got me. Jasper's comments on her posts were genuinely sweet. Heart emojis, inside jokes, little references to shared memories. This man was clearly head over heels in love with his wife, completely oblivious to the fact that she was using their marriage as a cover story for her extracurricular activities. The night before the big day, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was nervous. I was actually looking forward to it like a kid before Christmas. No, I couldn't sleep because I kept imagining different ways the scene might play out. Would Denver try to deny everything? Would Marlo pretend she didn't know who I was? Would Jasper immediately put 2 and 2 together? Or would I have to spell it out for him? I'd prepared for every possible scenario except the one where they all decided to order dessert and discuss their feelings like adults. Because let's be honest, that wasn't happening. At 6 a.m., Denver's alarm went off, and he went through his usual morning routine with the kind of energy that suggested he was looking forward to his day. Specifically, to 12:30 p.m. on his day. Big day today? I asked innocently as he adjusted his tie. The expensive one I'd never seen before. Just the usual. Few showings, couple of client meetings. You know how it is. He kissed my forehead again, and I wondered if he practiced these lies in the mirror, or if they just came naturally now. Well, have a great lunch, I said, putting just enough emphasis on the word lunch to make him pause for half a second. Lunch? Don't you usually grab lunch around 12:30? I noticed you've been eating out a lot lately. His recovery was smooth. I'll give him that. Oh, right. Yeah, probably just a quick sandwich between appointments. Nothing special. Nothing special. I was about to show him exactly how special his lunch was going to be. After he left, I spent an hour getting ready for what I'd started thinking of as my debut performance. Professional but approachable. Confident but not threatening. The kind of outfit that said successful businesswoman rather than scorned wife planning revenge. I chose a navy blazer, crisp white shirt, and my lucky heels. The ones I wore to presentations where I absolutely had to nail it. At 11:45, I was in my car, driving toward downtown Atlanta and toward the moment that would either vindicate 12 years of marriage or confirm that I'd wasted the better part of my 30s on a man whose idea of problem solving was adding more problems. Either way, lunch was going to be unforgettable. The parking situation at the Capitol Grill was, as usual, a nightmare designed to test your commitment to overpriced beef. But I'd anticipated this because, unlike some people, I actually plan ahead and had reserved a spot at the garage across the street. As I walked toward the restaurant, I spotted Denver's silver BMW parked in what he probably thought was a discreet location behind a delivery truck. Amateur. I arrived at 12:15, exactly 15 minutes before our scheduled meeting time. Early enough to observe, late enough to make an entrance. The hostess, a perfectly polished young woman who probably practiced her smile in the mirror every morning, greeted me with the kind of enthusiasm reserved for people who looked like they could afford the wine markup. Table for one? Actually, I'm meeting someone. Jasper Finch? We have a reservation for 12:30. She checked her little book like she was guarding state secrets. Of course. Right this way. Your guest hasn't arrived yet, but we'll get you settled. She led me to a table with perfect sightlines to the corner booth where Denver and Marlo conducted their little Tuesday matinee performances. The booth was empty, but I knew it wouldn't be for long. They were creatures of habit, these two. Predictable as a sitcom rerun, I ordered a sparkling water with lime, needed to keep my wits sharp, and casually surveyed the restaurant. The lunch crowd was the usual mix of business people discussing deals over salads they'd Instagram later, and wealthy housewives who treated lunch like a competitive sport. In 15 minutes, this place was going to get a show none of them would forget. At exactly 12:25, Denver walked in, right on schedule, wearing that navy blazer I'd complimented last month, and the cologne that had mysteriously appeared in our bathroom around the same time his client meetings started multiplying. He looked around nervously, which was new. Usually he strutted into restaurants like he owned them, but today he seemed almost guilty? Interesting. He was seated at their usual booth, checking his phone with the focused intensity of a man expecting very important communication from his interior design consultant. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was sitting 20 feet away from my husband, waiting for another man to join me for lunch, and Denver had absolutely no idea. At 12:28, Jasper Finch walked through the door, and I have to admit, photos didn't do him justice. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with the kind of genuine smile that suggested he still believed the world was fundamentally good. His handshake was firm, his eye contact direct, and his "thank you for meeting me" was so sincere, it almost made me feel guilty about what I was about to put him through. Almost. "Ms. Carmichael? I'm Jasper. Thank you so much for thinking of me for this project. Please, call me Lizbeth, and thank you for being so flexible with the meeting location. I hope this place works for you. Are you kidding? I've been wanting to try this place forever. My wife's always talking about how they have the best business lunch atmosphere in the city." "Oh, Jasper, your wife talks about this place because she's been here every Thursday for the past month, just not for business. Well, not the kind of business you're thinking of." "Your wife has good taste," I said, glancing toward Denver's booth just as Marlo made her grand entrance. And what an entrance it was. Marlo Finch swept into the Capitol Grill like she was walking a red carpet, all flowing hair and carefully calculated casual elegance. She wore a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than most people's rent, paired with jewelry that caught the light just right. Everything about her screamed, "I'm worth destroying a marriage for," which, to be fair, was probably the look she was going for. Denver's face lit up like a Christmas tree when he saw her. The man practically glowed with anticipation, standing up to greet her with a hug that lasted just a few seconds too long for business associates. They settled into their booth, and I watched as they fell into their practiced routine of pretending to look at menus while actually making googly eyes at each other. "Excuse me?" Jasper said, interrupting my surveillance. "But isn't that my wife?" My heart rate spiked, but I kept my voice casual. "Your wife? The blonde woman who just sat down?" "Yeah, that's Marlo. What a coincidence. She must be here with a client. He was already starting to wave at her, and I realized I had about 30 seconds before this whole thing spiraled out of my control. Jasper, wait. I placed my hand gently on his arm. Before you go over there, can I ask you something? Sure, of course. How long have you and Marlo been married? 5 years in June. Why do you... He paused, his expression shifting from confusion to something that looked suspiciously like the beginning of understanding. Is everything okay? This was it. The moment of truth. I could either chicken out and pretend this was all a terrible coincidence, or I could follow through with the plan that had been keeping me awake for a week. I looked at Jasper's trusting face, then at my husband and his mistress giggling over their illegal lunch date, and made my choice. Jasper, I need to tell you something, and I need you to stay calm when I do. His entire body tensed. What's going on? The man your wife is having lunch with? That's my husband. Denver Carmichael. And this isn't a business meeting. I watched the color drain from Jasper's face as the pieces clicked into place. His eyes darted between me and the booth where his wife was currently touching my husband's hand across the table. What? Are you saying that they're having an affair? For at least a month, probably longer. Every Thursday, 12:30, this exact table. Jasper stared at the booth like he was trying to solve a puzzle that kept changing pieces. But she said she was meeting a client. She's been so busy with new projects lately, working late, weekend consultations. Weekend consultations with married men tend to be that time-consuming. He looked at me with an expression I recognized, the same one I'd worn 3 weeks ago when I'd first seen Denver's phone bill. It was the look of someone watching their entire reality crumble in real time. How long have you known? He asked quietly. 3 weeks. I've been planning this conversation for 7 days. Planning this conversation? I took a deep breath. Jasper, I didn't actually contact you about a marketing project. I mean, I am a marketing director, and I would absolutely hire you because your work is impressive, but that's not why we're here. Then why are we here? I gestured toward the booth where Denver and Marlo were now sharing what appeared to be a very intimate conversation over breadsticks. Because I thought you deserved to know what your wife does during her lunch breaks. And because I wanted to give them both a front row seat to the moment their little secret stopped being secret. Jasper was quiet for a long moment, processing this information with the kind of methodical thinking that probably made him good at his job. Finally, he looked at me with something that might have been admiration. You orchestrated this entire meeting just to expose them? Orchestrated makes it sound more dramatic than it was. I simply arranged for the right people to be in the right place at the right time. The truth was going to come out eventually. I just gave it a little scheduling assistance. And now what? Now, Jasper, we're going to walk over to that booth, and I'm going to introduce you to your wife's lunch companion. Unless you'd prefer to pretend this never happened and go home to wonder why Marlo always smells like someone else's cologne on Thursday afternoons. He was quiet for another moment, then straightened his shoulders in a way that reminded me why I'd liked him from his LinkedIn photo. Let's go meet my wife's new friend. As we stood up, I caught sight of our reflection in the restaurant's mirror. 2 people who'd been betrayed by the people they trusted most, about to confront the architects of their heartbreak in the most public way possible. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt like the first honest thing that had happened in months. One more thing, Jasper, I said as we walked toward the booth. Try to enjoy this. It's probably going to be the most satisfying lunch of your life. Walking across that restaurant felt like the longest 20 feet of my life, and the shortest all at once. Every step brought us closer to the moment that would shatter 4 lives and reshape them in ways none of us could predict. But as we approached that corner booth where my husband and his interior design mistress were playing footsie over $40 steaks, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Pure, unadulterated satisfaction. Denver saw me first. I'll never forget the expression on his face. It was like watching someone realize they'd been walking around with their pants down all day. His eyes went wide, his mouth dropped open, and his face turned a shade of red that perfectly matched the wine he'd ordered to impress his lunch companion. Marlo was mid-sentence, probably saying something devastatingly clever about throw pillows or the importance of good lighting, when she noticed Denver's sudden paralysis. She turned to see what had captured his attention so completely, And when her eyes met mine, I swear the temperature in the restaurant dropped 10 degrees. But the real magic happened when she saw Jasper standing next to me. If Denver looked like someone who'd been caught with their pants down, Marlo looked like someone who'd been caught burning down the house and was still holding the matches. "Well, well, well," I said, sliding into their booth uninvited, forcing them to scoot over like scolded children. "What a delightful coincidence running into you two here." Jasper remained standing, which gave him a psychological advantage I hadn't anticipated but absolutely loved. He towered over the table like a particularly handsome storm cloud, his expression unreadable, but definitely not happy. "Denver," I continued, my voice dripping with the kind of fake sweetness you use when you're about to deliver devastating news, "I'd like you to meet Jasper Finch. Jasper, this is my husband, Denver." Denver managed a weak handshake, probably hoping this was some kind of terrible misunderstanding that would resolve itself if he just played along. Nice to meet you." "And Marlo," I turned to the woman who'd been redecorating my marriage without permission, "I believe you already know Jasper. You know, your husband." The silence that followed was so complete you could have heard a breadcrumb drop. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath, sensing that something dramatic was unfolding but not quite sure what. Even the business executives at the next table stopped discussing their quarterly projections to eavesdrop. Marlo finally found her voice, though it came out about 3 octaves higher than normal. "Jasper, what are you doing here?" "Having lunch," he replied calmly. "With Lisbeth. We were discussing a business project." The irony was beautiful. The woman who'd been using business meetings as code for adultery was now watching her own husband use the same excuse for something completely innocent. "Business project?" Marlo looked between us like she was trying to solve advanced calculus in her head. "Marketing campaign," I explained helpfully. "I need a graphic designer, and Jasper comes highly recommended. Although, now that I think about it, I should probably ask you both for references. I mean, you seem to know each other so well." Denver finally found his voice, though he used it to say possibly the stupidest thing in the history of stupid things. "Lisbeth, what are you doing here?" "Having lunch with Jasper." "What are you doing here, Denver? I thought you had property showings this afternoon." This is a client meeting." "A client meeting," I repeated slowly, like I was testing how the words tasted. "How interesting." "Marlo, is that how you'd describe this too? A client meeting?" Marlo was clearly the smarter of the 2 cheaters, because she realized that denial wasn't going to work when all 4 parties were sitting at the same table. "Lisbeth, I can explain." "Oh, please do. I'm fascinated to hear how you explain why you and my husband have been having client meetings every Thursday for the past month. And Jasper, I'm sure you're equally interested in learning about Marlo's new interior design projects." Jasper, who had been remarkably quiet through this entire exchange, finally spoke up. "Actually, Marlo, I am curious about these Thursday projects, especially since you told me you were working with a new female client who needed help with her master bedroom." The master bedroom comment hit like a nuclear bomb. Denver actually choked on his water, and Marlo looked like she wanted to crawl under the table and disappear forever. "I can see why you'd specialize in master bedrooms," I said to Marlo, my voice getting sharper with each word. "Though I have to say, your professional ethics leave something to be desired. Most interior designers don't sleep with their clients' husbands." That did it. The dam burst, and the truth came flooding out in all its ugly glory. "It's not what you think," Marlo said desperately, which is what everyone says when it's exactly what you think. "Really? Because what I think is that you've been having an affair with my husband while pretending to love yours. What I think is that you've been lying to everyone in your life so you could feel special for a few hours every week. What I think is that you're the kind of person who destroys families for fun." Jasper sat down heavily, like the weight of the revelation had finally hit him. "How long?" he asked quietly. Denver and Marlo looked at each other, probably trying to decide who should confess first. Neither of them volunteered. 6 weeks, I said, since they seemed to have forgotten how to speak. Started with a legitimate business consultation about staging a property. evolved into whatever this pathetic display is supposed to be. 6 weeks, Jasper repeated, and I could see him mentally reviewing the past month and a half, probably remembering all the times Marlo had been working late or meeting clients on weekends. The restaurant had gotten noticeably quieter around us. Our little drama was apparently more entertaining than the usual business lunch conversation, and we were drawing attention from tables all over the dining room. Perhaps we should take this somewhere more private, Denver suggested, finally showing some awareness of their public humiliation. Oh no, I said firmly. I think this is the perfect place for this conversation. After all, this is where you two decided to conduct your relationship. It seems fitting that it should end here too. End? Marlo's voice cracked on the word. Well, surely you didn't think this could continue now that everyone knows. Or were you planning to send calendar invites for your affair? Weekly adultery meeting, RSVP required. Jasper stood up abruptly. I need some air, he announced, and walked away from the table without another word. I watched him go, feeling a pang of genuine sympathy. Whatever else happened today, Jasper was the innocent victim in all this, and seeing his world crumble in real time wasn't nearly as satisfying as I'd expected it to be. But my sympathy for Jasper didn't extend to the two cheaters still sitting across from me, looking like children who'd been caught drawing on the walls with permanent markers. Congratulations, I told them. You've officially destroyed 2 marriages in the span of one lunch. That might be some kind of record. Denver tried one last desperate play. Lisbeth, can we please discuss this at home? Privately? Privately? Like how you've been privately destroying our marriage for 6 weeks? I don't think so, Denver. I think we're way past private conversations. I stood up, smoothing my skirt and picking up my purse with the kind of dignity I'd been practicing in my head for days. Enjoy your lunch, I told them. I hope it was worth it. And with that, I walked away, leaving my cheating husband and his mistress to deal with the wreckage of their choices, the stares of an entire restaurant, and a check for 2 meals they probably couldn't even taste anymore. Outside, I found Jasper leaning against the building, looking like a man who'd just watched his entire life rearrange itself without his permission. How are you holding up? I asked. He looked at me with something that might have been respect. You planned all of this, didn't you? This wasn't just about exposing them. It was about making sure they faced the consequences publicly. They made their choices publicly. Every Thursday, in that restaurant, in front of everyone. I just made sure everyone knew what they were really seeing. And now what happens? I looked back at the restaurant, where Denver and Marlo were probably having the most uncomfortable meal of their lives. Now they get to figure out if their great love story was worth losing everything else. As it turned out, it wasn't. 8 months later, I'm sitting in my newly redecorated home office. Yes, I hired an interior designer, and no, it wasn't Marlo. Sipping coffee and reflecting on how dramatically life can change when you stop accepting other people's poor choices as your personal problems. The aftermath of our little restaurant reunion played out exactly like a badly written soap opera, except with better lighting and significantly higher legal fees. Denver moved out 3 days after our public confrontation, probably because coming home every night to face the woman who'd orchestrated his public humiliation was killing whatever remained of his male ego. He rented a studio apartment in Midtown, the kind of place 25-year-olds live when they're still figuring out their lives. Perfect for a 41-year-old man having a midlife crisis. The divorce was finalized last month, and let me tell you, having concrete evidence of infidelity makes property division negotiations significantly more favorable. Turns out judges don't look kindly on husbands who spend marital assets on romantic dinners with other people's wives. Who knew? But here's the really interesting plot twist that even I didn't see coming. Jasper called me 2 weeks after the restaurant incident. Not to yell, not to blame me for exposing his wife's affair, but to thank me. Apparently, Marlo's cheating was just the tip of the iceberg in what he described as the most toxic marriage this side of a reality TV show. Marlo had been systematically undermining Jasper's confidence for years, convincing him his photography business was a cute hobby, and that his artistic vision was commercially unrealistic. She'd isolated him from friends, criticized his appearance, and made him believe he was lucky to have her attention. Sound familiar? Except while Denver had just been a garden-variety cheater with commitment issues, Marlo was operating at a whole different level of manipulation. The more Jasper and I talked, initially about legal strategies and divorce proceedings, the more I realized we'd both been married to emotional vampires. The difference was, Denver was just selfish and immature. Marlo was calculating. She left town 2 weeks after our restaurant encounter, claiming she'd gotten a better job opportunity in Portland. Translation: she couldn't handle living in a place where everyone knew exactly what kind of person she was. Denver tried calling me several times, oscillating between pathetic apologies and indignant accusations that I'd humiliated him unnecessarily. His final voicemail was a masterpiece of deflection. "Lisbeth, what you did was cruel and calculated. I made mistakes, but you chose public humiliation. That says something about your character, too." I saved that message. Sometimes when I need a good laugh, I play it back and marvel at the mental gymnastics required to make yourself the victim when you're caught cheating. But this story isn't really about Denver or Marlo. It's about what happened next. Jasper and I started meeting for coffee once a week, initially as a support system for 2 people navigating messy divorces simultaneously. What struck me most about Jasper was his incredible talent. The photography portfolio Marlo had convinced him was not commercially viable was exactly what my marketing firm needed. 6 months later, Jasper became my company's official head of visual content. His photography elevated our campaigns beyond anything we'd achieved before, and our client retention rate increased by 35%. But more than that, watching Jasper rediscover his confidence was like witnessing someone learn to breathe again. We were both healing, both rebuilding, and somewhere in that process, friendship evolved into something deeper. Not the desperate rebound romance of 2 wounded people, but the steady, mature connection of 2 adults who'd learned what they actually wanted. The Denver situation resolved itself with anticlimactic efficiency. He moved to Chicago about 4 months after our divorce, apparently chasing another career opportunity. I heard he's dating someone new, a woman in her late 20s who works in social media marketing. I genuinely hope it works out better than his previous attempts at adulting. Last month, Jasper and I moved in together. The house we bought has a beautiful home office for me and a photography studio for him. We host dinner parties where guests actually enjoy each other's company, where nobody's walking on eggshells or managing someone else's emotions. Now, if you'll excuse me, Jasper's making dinner, and we have a photography exhibition to plan. Turns out life gets remarkably easier when you're partnered with someone who actually wants to see you succeed. Who would have thought that discovering your husband's affair could lead to discovering your own worth? Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting better.